Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. You may notice I have my spinning wheel going. I'm spinning my Leicester Longwool. I'm filling up this bobbin. I will probably fill up another bobbin before I am done. I am working on spinning through what's in this bucket of fiber. I didn't weigh it. I don't know how much is in here. I don't know how many bobbins it will fill. But I want to get a good amount of Leicester Longwool, undyed, natural color, spun up for some projects that my son wants to do. And so I'm just filling bobbins. And it is one of the most enjoyable ways for me to spin. I'm going to do a 3-ply with this because I'm spinning this Leicester Longwool on the thin side. And I need it to be a little bit thicker for the craft project that he is going to be using it for. But rather than trying to spin this in a thick fashion, I am letting the fiber kind of guide me as to the thickness that feels comfortable for me and it. And when I wrap it back on itself, and I'm not sure the camera would even possibly pick it up from there, I can tell it's going to be too thin. So I'm going to do a 3-ply because it's going to be used to make some more little amigurumis like this little guy. And for those of you that have been watching and knew that we were doing the Ravelinics this year, this is a little guy that I dyed up the fibers that my son decided he was going to make. He calls him Tim. And he loves the little mushroom hat. And we made him a little tiny wool vest with some little buttons. It is a little vest, but it has snaps, so you can unsnap it. The buttons, of course, sewn on to give it the look. But my son made this. This is his first following a bigger pattern. And he's so proud of himself. He's so thrilled. He has been crocheting for quite some time. But following this pattern, it challenged him. It was definitely learning something new. And we are thrilled. So here is Tim. I will bring him up in front of the camera so you can see his hat. It is a pattern from the book Crochet Impkins by Megan Lapp. And my son wants to make, she has a whole collection of little cutie mushroom creatures. And he wants to make those. And after I made my little crochet guy, my little Emma here. Okay. I made Emma using the Leicester Longwool. We compared notes. We really like the way that this specific fiber looks, the sheen that it has, the way that it crochets up. It spins in a worsted manner just beautifully. It makes a good worsted wool. And so I'm spinning more craft yarn for him. And of course, since we're in the last hours of Tour de Fleece 2024, I thought this would be a good, easy spin, and I could talk to you a little bit more about spinning this Leicester Longwool. Now, you will see me, I'm sitting here. I don't know how well the camera is showing it. I have videos that I show more of my, I have videos where I have a second camera, zoom in on my hands, show you the spinning, especially if we look to Tour de Fleece last year or the year before. I lose track now. But I've done that where I've shown, different camera angles as I've spun. But I'm just in the mood to have a kind of a relaxing spin. But I wanted to talk about Leicester Longwool again. I know a video from 2020, I think it is. I was spinning some Leicester Longwool out on my back porch. It is a fabulous fiber. It is in the Longwool fibers. I think for individuals who are not able to get, it's a U.S. heritage breed. It's a breed of sheep that would have been here at the time of the American Revolution. It has been brought back, restored, recovered preservation. So it's a heritage breed. And I think you're probably, it's a long wool, and it's probably more closely related to, say, like the Lincoln Longwool. Maybe not as curly and long of locks as the Lincoln Longwool, but basically it is a nice long wool. It's a single coat. There's not it's not like some of the dual coats out there. It is a wonderful, the fiber that I have is from a lamb. There's its staple length. So it's a nice long wool, but not an extraordinarily long wool. And it is a fabulous type to just open up the lock and spin. And that's my preferred method of spinning it. This animal lived in Colorado. It lived on land that had pine trees and so pine needles and coarse, little undergrowth, and because it lived not in the mountains of Colorado, but on the plains. But it lived in an area with it does have some vegetable matter that you might associate more with coarser pine trees and undergrowth that is under the evergreen. So I'm picking out, as I spin, I'll show you, I'm picking out some vegetable matter, some coarse bits that, some shortcuts and coarse bits that are tangled. But all I'm doing is I'm opening up these locks from the cut end, okay? Opening up the tips just a little bit. Some of them are going to need some flicking because there's a little bit of, there's a little more matted or caked in debris. But most of the locks that I'm working with are nice and clean. I just open them up like that. I lay my my fiber, my spun fiber, my single down on it, and then I just draft. And it's relaxing. It's no stress. Some of the locks will have vegetable matter that I need to pick out. But for the most part, it's a really simple spin. It is a spin that I certainly need to have a drop cloth in my lap, although I will admit I have, in most of the cases during this spinning, not managed to pick the drop cloth up and take it outside to shake it without dumping it all over my lap to begin with. So I'm not quite sure why I'm going to the effort, but it's still the effort being made. I have a small bath rug type mat under my spinning wheel. I started spinning with this mat under my spinning wheel for a couple purposes. One, it prevents if there's any oil that just decides to fling off at any point. It helps protect the floor and the carpet from the oils. But it also does help have a little area that it kind of helps keep the floor cleaner when I'm spinning a highly vegetable matter filled fleece. And as I said, so this fleece, a lot of this fleece is beautifully clean. It doesn't have, it's not a heavily vegetable mattered fleece at all. It's just the stuff that is in it, unlike little hay particles and things that are hard to pick out. The stuff that is in this one, I mean, it feels, I'm not going to be able to separate that from the rest of the stuff in there. It feels like little twigs, little spiky grab twigs. So while it is cleaner and it is in theory easy to pick out larger pieces, these little larger pieces have lots of little pokey, grippy things that make it difficult to pull it away from the fleece. Not really thorns, or I should say, I'm losing the word, not bramble, but no, I'm losing the word. I've lost the word. the little burry things that cling on your clothing and stuff like that. It's not that kind of thing. It is just little sticks, little pieces of vegetable that are very grippy, very pokey. Okay, I'll have to pull one of these out because it is such a simple little thing. It looks like, there we go, such a simple little thing. But all those little ends on it, oh my goodness, they are spiky and they're like, it's like little pieces of Velcro. Ah. And so they don't they sometimes don't want to let go. But in the grand scheme of spinning a fiber, if that is the only issue, then you have to say this is a really great fiber, a great fleece. And it is. Look how easy that was to open up. So it's one of the things I do like about the long wools that I have spun, especially these that have lots of luster and you're spinning them. Basically, I'm spinning it worsted because I'm spinning it from the lock. I'm trying to keep the cut ends going on first, the tips, the last. I'm trying to keep it in alignment. So it is very much a worsted style spin. The thing I like about it is when I'm spinning these, it wants to just feed on. It just feeds on. It's smooth. It's got luster. It's silky in texture. So it is a thicker, coarser fiber, but it has such a lovely, smooth texture. It occasionally gets some of it gets caught on the tines of my spinning wheel there. But it's a beautiful, relaxing spin. It's like, so when I've spun Wensleydale, that again is one of these fibers. I like to just open up the lock and spin it right on like this, creating a worsted. It doesn't require a ton of twist. I'm able to just let it go on. It's getting enough twist, not making it ropey, but it doesn't need a ton of twist. And it just spins on beautifully. So while it is technically a worsted style spin, occasionally I'm doing a little bit of a long draft, a long draw with it. See my hand? Because it just wants to come out. And it's just, yeah, it's just lovely. So look into, if you haven't already tried, I suggest maybe giving a try some of these long wools. Wensleydale is a favorite. I follow a breeder on Facebook that does the Lincoln long wools, and oh my goodness, I see those sheep, I see that wool, and I'd love to give some of it a try someday. So the longer staples, the luster, these qualities really make for a beautiful utility yarn, craft yarn. But I want to spin this the way it feels comfortable to spin. And so in my case, I am spinning the single. Let me set this aside for a second. I have a little gauge if I don't drop it. The single on this, I would say, is probably, the single is showing at about 20 wraps per inch. Okay. No, it's less. So it's probably half that. It's probably 30, 35 wraps per inch for this single. I have a feeling that just as if I let it go back on itself, there's not a lot of twist in this, so it's kind of hard to have it go back on itself. I'm doing this very, lightly spun. Yeah, right now, if I just did this as a double, it's going to be probably 16 to 18, no, 14 to 16. I'm looking at this, sorry. It's going to be 16 to 18 wraps per inch if I did this as a 2-ply. And I need it thicker than that. So one of the things I like to do, as I said, as I was saying, I like to let the fiber tell me what it wants to spin. And this is really comfortable. It's going to make a light fingering to lace weight if I do this as a 2-ply. I'm not putting a ton of twist in this, and this is important. This fiber, because of its long length and because of the way it wants to grip to itself, okay, it doesn't need a lot of twist. You don't need to put a great deal of twist. You can have a very, very soft, very, very soft, let me see if I can get it with the curtain behind, very, very soft fiber. And it's going to hold together because it's got a really long staple length and it has the grippiness to it. So that combined means I can go thin. I can keep this on the thinner side and also a soft. But when I ply it, that's when, if I put multiple plies, I can create a thicker yarn. Rather than trying to spin this thick, rather than trying to spin this thick and put more twist in it, and potentially, and I have done this, get a more ropey textured yarn, I'm keeping it light, I'm keeping it minimal twist going in it, and when I ply it, I will make sure that the ply holds everything together. I do not want a loosely spun yarn. I do want a good balanced yarn, but I'd prefer to over twist a little bit on my ply than to over twist on my single and my ply. So when I ply this, I will ply this at least with 3 singles to get the thickness I want. And I will work really hard to get a balanced yarn, but making sure that it grips around each other, and I'm trying to explain this in common terms rather than technical terms. I want it to twist around each other, not just to achieve balance, because having a little bit unbalanced yarn can give it more springy life. And I'm doing crochet, so I know where the end result's going to be. We're going to crochet this tight, and because I'm spinning this in more for a knitted yarn than a crochet, it'll probably add extra twist. And for the amigurumi, it's going to work just fine. Because I'm going to be crocheting this dense and close using a smaller hook than I would normally use for something and tight. So when I'm spinning this, I want to make sure there's enough twist in the single to hold it together, but not too much. And then when I do the spinning, the plying, I really want to make sure that the twist hooks it together. So I have some of the merino that I did. These are the yarns that I did for Ravelenics. I have them finished. When we look up close, you see the twist of it. You see it's all the strands are tightly wrapped around each other. Okay. There's not big airy gaps. There's not a looseness. We want to have that balanced yarn, but we want it balanced in essence, in a snug fashion. So you can look into the science of spinning. You can look into the math of spinning. You can sit and very carefully look at your twist and wrap it back and try to see, like, now that's nice. That one I have a lot of twist, good twist in it. And it's a pretty tight, nice, and it's not very big. And you can look at all of that. But for me, in the end, It's a feel. When I feel there's enough twist that is pushing against my fingers just a little bit with this long lock, I let the twist come up. I let it come further, and when I see it twisting in, and I feel like it's enough, that's just barely making it to where I can't draft anymore, it's time to let it go. Time to let it go into the bobbin. Because it's, of course, going to gain a little more twist as it's going from my fingers into the bobbin. So when it's coming up here, I want just enough twist that it's not going to draft apart. And that's all I'm aiming for. And it's a feel. I feel the twist coming along my fingers. I see it in my hands, but I feel it more than anything. I just want to have just that enough twist that this fiber isn't going to draft apart, especially when I ply it with another single. So that's what I'm going for. That's my goal. Just enough twist in this case as to prevent it drafting apart. And then when I do the plying, I will make really careful sure that as I'm plying it, that I'm getting all the twist I need to see that 45-degree angle, that S or that Z angle. I'm looking for that angle of the twist when I ply. So cute. Okay. Most of the time, I will not have that much of it curl back around itself. This is also one that I was doing at the last minute. Let's see where it sits. There's a little bit of twist, and again, it has not had any of the twist set, and when you soak it and let it dry, it rehydrates, re-energizes the fiber that was sitting on, like in this case, sitting on a bobbin for a week, as I got the one part of it done at the first part of the week, had an interruption, didn't finish it until last. So when you set the twist, when you put it in the water, you rehydrate, you re-energize any of the yarn that's been sitting on the bobbin. More than a day type situation. It's relaxed. And when you put it in the water, it stops being relaxed and it re-energizes, and it will balance out some of the twist that's there because I'm plying it and putting all that energy in it, but the single had lost its energy because it was sitting on a bobbin for multiple days. So I'm not going to try to explain the science of it. For those of you that have spun a bunch, you already know what I'm talking about. For you that are learning, my suggestion is to not worry so much about the explanation, but instead make samples. Feel the fiber. Try to make a yarn that the single has just enough twist to not draft apart. Okay? Not be a rope, not too much twist, and then try to ply it to where you really are feeling that twist match up in your fingers, push against them, and then wash it. It is great when we do Tour de Fleece. We have goals. We set yardage amounts. We said we're going to try to spin pounds of fiber. My recommendation is as you exit Tour de Fleece, get yourself some fiber that you want to have fun with. My son calls this Halloween colors. He thinks it looks like Halloween, and it does. It really does kind of speak. It doesn't have any black in it, but it speaks Halloween, and it'd be beautiful worked up with some black yarn in a project. Take yourself a braid or something and separate it into little, like if you have a 4-ounce braid, separate it into 1-ounce sections, and then separate that into 1/2 ounce, and spin a 1/2 ounce, spin a second 1/2 ounce, and ply it. See what happens when you allow one to sit for a week and then spin it against something that is just freshly spun. Try spinning an energized yarn. Play around in these upcoming months. Give yourself a chance to rest and recuperate after having just had an intense month of spinning. One of the things that happens, though, after Tour de Fleece, and sometimes even by the end of Tour de Fleece, is all that extra energy and enthusiasm that we have at the beginning of the event kind of wears away because we're tired. And we can lose our mojo just because we're tired. We've sat down and we've spun our goals, or we've tried to spin our goals, and now what's next? And now, in addition, we may not have as much communication and support. We may have made really great friends, but maybe we aren't in a chat group that we can maintain those friends until next year. And so we can feel a little bit of a lull. We can feel, and we see it, those of us that monitor the events every year, that moderate, that try to really work to have it a fun event for, especially in my case, for all the rookies out there. I see the extreme enthusiasm as we get close to Tour de Fleece. But by the time we have the month of run up to Tour de Fleece, then we have the month of Tour de Fleece, we wear down, we get tired, we have life enters back in. And it's sometimes hard to get back into the spinning. It's sometimes hard to maintain the spinning. We also see the yarn piling up, and we think, well, how am I going to use this? And maybe I should use this up before I spin something else. So this is a good time to take a bundle of yarn and separate it into small little handfuls, half-ounce handfuls even. 20 gram ball, type situation. Try separating it out and use this time to try something completely different. Feel the yarn. See how it reacts when you just get a little bit of twist in it. See how it reacts when you have a lot of twist in it. Maybe try spinning one single S and one single Z and then ply them one of the ways and see what happens. This is the time to play. Yes, we have holidays coming up. Other things will start to be on demand. We will be thinking about different things. So take the lessons of Tour de Fleece, the spinning every day, the making ourselves goals, and turn that into something that is maybe once a week. Maybe once a week you sit down with a little small ball of yarn and you try to spin by feel. Or maybe you try to spin by watching how many fibers go through and maybe counting the fibers or trying to keep it very precise. Maybe it's trying to spin something a little thick. Maybe it's trying to do a 4-ply. And that's the thing. If you make all of these little bundles of small spins, don't hesitate to ply them together. Maybe take a 2-plied yarn and ply it with another 2-plied yarn. Make yourself some goals to get you through this lull after Tour de Fleece as we get closer to the big holidays, as we get closer to the Halloween and the Christmas and the celebrations of autumn, the celebrations of spring, depending on the part of the world you live in. Make some little goals. Set up some little sample spins with the sheer end result being to try something a little different, even if that little different is letting go of expectation and in this case, letting go of the vegetable matter, but letting go of expectation and just simply letting the fiber slide through your fingers and become something new. So that is my wrap up for Tour de Fleece 2024. Until the next Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric, I am wishing you all the best. Thank you so much for joining me as I unwind. Until next time, bye-bye.